In Germany, as the famous expression goes, Ordnung muss sein. There must be order. In fact, this proverbial saying is so integrated into the German psyche that it's become a cultural cliché for Germans around the world, and a guiding principle for them at home. In Germany, your brown, green, and clear glass must be properly separated and recycled. But of course, not during children's nap times, and certainly not on Sundays. In fact, you must be as quiet as possible on Sundays, on legal holidays, after 10 p.m., and on specifically designated train cars. You must always obey the pedestrian signals at a crossing, even if no cars are coming. You must be punctual, even if Deutsche Bahn is not. And if you want to get anything done in this country, you will, of course, need to print, fill out, and sign the proper forms, make a formal in-person appointment, take your number, and wait to be called to find out if you followed the rules or missed something in the fine print, which you probably did. On the surface, Ordnung muss sein does appear to be the foundation of German personal and social conduct. But stereotypes aside, what exactly makes Germans so orderly in the first place? Well, let's take a look. If you spend any amount of time in Germany or happen to overhear the German language, you'll quickly find that it is teeming with phrases all about order. We can start off with the basic alles in Ordnung. Everything in order? Or is everything all right? Then there's also, if you approve of someone, you would probably describe them as being in Ordnung, or all right. And if you want to praise something, nothing beats the adjective ordentlich, which doesn't just mean tidy, but also well done. And then of course there's a phrase, Ordnung hat Gott lieb, which roughly translates to orderliness is next to godliness, something that I'm sure a lot of English speakers have probably also reiterated. But this German concept in particular, the idea that there's a higher power behind what Germans perceive to be a good thing, whether that power is God, a king, a pastor, or a chancellor, it is of course tied to its history. In fact, the proverb that I led this video with, Ordnung muss sein, is credited to Germany's most well-known theologian, Martin Luther. In addition to a love for black hats, order was of particular importance to Luther. He wrote, Ordnung muss sein unter die Leuten, which translates to, there must be order among the people. But here, order was aimed more at a spiritual, religious piety, as opposed necessarily to legal law. But the sentiment stuck around and was eventually used and perpetuated to a wider American audience by Paul von Hindenburg, the last president of the Weimar Republic, with the phrase printed under his portrait when he graced the cover of Time magazine in 1934. But whether or not you think this sentiment is really just sort of a cliche about German people, the reality is that it's not just outsiders who stereotype the Germans this way. They do it to themselves, too. According to a 2012 Deutsche Welle column, order is the regulated condition, no matter what, and order is half of life. So goes the German saying, let others take care of the other half. But beyond language, order permeates into every corner of German life. If you live in an apartment block, you'll have to follow the Hausordnung. At train stations, you'll have to abide by the Bahnhofsordnung. At public swimming pools, it's the Badeordnung. And you can't even escape it on the high seas, where you better pay attention to the Schiffsfahrtsstraßenordnung if you don't want to collide with another tanker. So naturally, Germany wouldn't be Germany if they didn't also have the Ordnungsamt, quite literally the German Public Order Office, which employs a special team of order officers to crack down on playing loud music during quiet hours, disorderly parking offenders, and enforcing when and how long your dog is allowed to bark. Seriously, the order courts have actually ruled that your furry friend is allowed no more than 10 minutes of barking at a time, for a total of no more than 30 minutes of barking per day. Outside of quiet hours, of course, because that is never allowed. But bingo beware, if you're caught being disorderly by the Ordnungsamt, you'll get an Ordnungswidrigkeit, a misdemeanor. Okay, so this is really embarrassing, but I was actually the target of an intended scam, and they almost got me. I had just moved here to Germany when I got a WhatsApp message from who I thought was my doctoral advisor. As a then PhD student, I also worked for our department, so when I got this message asking for me to pick up a gift card for a guest lecturer, well, it actually kind of sounded legitimate. Until it didn't. A few messages later, I started to get suspicious and I thought, it's probably better that I just go talk to him in person. At which point it became clear that this was all a ruse and I was the intended target of a scam. Now, thankfully, there was no money lost and I was able to block this person from messaging me further, but the whole thing had me wondering, how did this person get my phone number in the first place and how did they know who I worked for? Well, the truth is, they probably bought that information. There is an entire market out there where your information is being bought and sold. They know your name, your age, where you live, and in my case, again, the phone number and who I worked for. And all of this is being collected and sold around on these massive sites. The good news here is that we actually have the right to demand that our information be taken off of these lists. The bad news is that it's really hard and laborious to do so. But thanks to Incogni, the sponsor of today's video, I don't have to be worried about this happening again because they do the legwork for me and take me off of the lists. Seriously, I didn't have to do a thing, just sign up and give them permission to act on your behalf. And then they go out and find the list that you are on and start demanding that you be taken off. If any of these data brokers push back, Incogni continues to push them until all of your information is deleted from the lists. I signed up for them a while back when they asked to sponsor one of my videos, and I am so glad I did because I feel so much safer. I don't have to worry about somebody getting hold of my personal information and contacting me like this again. And I can actually use their dashboard to see them working in real time as they continue to work to guard my privacy. So if you too want to guard your privacy, use the code Ashton and click the link down in the description of this video to get a big discount, 60% off of the annual plan of Incogni. Again, I'm really grateful that they are sponsoring today's video, and I encourage you guys to check them out and give them a look. But all jokes aside, I think there is something larger and more important that this sense of order provides German society. And that's a community that feels safe, predictable, and stable. And while at times, yes, this can of course feel overly restrictive and laborious, it does also kind of act as a social safety net. And that for me was illustrated so clearly on my very first ever encounter here in Germany. I had just landed at the airport in Frankfurt, and while I was in line with my passport in hand, I overheard an argument happening ahead of me in line between an American visitor and the immigration officer. Now, to be fair, I didn't hear what the gripe was of the American woman, but I definitely heard the response of the German officer, who said, in no uncertain terms, "I went to school for years to learn how to do my job. I am good at my job. I am competent at my job. You do not get to tell me how to do my job," which I gotta say was incredibly impressive. And I don't doubt that the American woman was probably being a little arrogant in her initial assertion with that officer. But this exchange really underscored for me something that I've noticed for quite some time now, which is that in general, there really does seem to be a sense of trust in this orderly system. And I think that's what makes the whole society work so well. Order isn't just about rule following, but also following those who make the rules. And the German people have built a system that ensures competency in their authority figures, regardless of which industry you work in. A few weeks ago, I made a video about German bread and underscored that even bakers have to undergo approximately 3 to 4 years of training in order to become certified in their field. And this training, called an Ausbildung, isn't just simply reserved for people who make delicious dough, but is a prerequisite for most trade skills. Everything from a police officer to a beautician, a hotel specialist to a chef, a bank teller to a nurse, an IT consultant to an electrician, undergoing a rigorous multi-year vocational training and on-site apprenticeships is pretty standard in order to be certified in their field. Which ultimately means that you can be very confident that the people that you encounter not only carry out their jobs with competency, but that they truly are the resident authority in their field. And this to me is one of the biggest unspoken reasons why I think Germans happen just to be so orderly. I mean, the entire society has built up a system where you can be pretty sure that the people you come into contact with every day are highly skilled, highly competent, and you can trust that they have certifiable proficiency in what they do. And at a risk of sounding quite critical, I just don't think that same level of competency is carried out to the same degree in the same professions in the United States. For example, to be a licensed beautician in Germany, you have to undergo 3 to 3.5 years of training, which includes the acquisition of theoretical knowledge and skills within a traditional classroom and practically related competencies acquired through an apprenticeship in a salon. By contrast, cosmetology school in the United States is highly variable. In Illinois, where I grew up, for example, the training is about half of what it is in Germany. Now, they do still practice the same dual study program, but this is usually completed in just 1 to 2 years, as it encompasses just 1,500 hours mandated by the Illinois state regulations. And that same thing goes for other professions as well, including the ones that are supposed to ensure civility and order in the first place. For example, the Polizeiausbildung in Germany, which refers to the police officer training program, is rigorous and very comprehensive that prepares individuals for a career in law enforcement and usually takes about 3 years to complete. Trainees learn about ethical standards, professional conduct, and the importance of upholding human rights, which means that the police officers you encounter in Germany, whether they're patrolling the streets or at a border crossing, are not only highly skilled in security, but also in ethics and interpersonal skills. However, across the pond, there are around 18,000 police agencies in the US, but with no national standards on training, procedures and timescales vary considerably from county to county. On average, US police officers spend just 21 weeks of training before they're qualified to go out on patrol. This is far less than in most other developed countries, according to a report by the Institute for Criminal Justice Training Reform. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to vilify American police officers, but I really do think it goes to underscore that more training helps keep everyone safe, including the police officers themselves. US police officers are actually up to 5 times more likely to harm themselves than to be killed by homicide, and yet they only get a few hours of training, if any, on self-care. And I think cumulatively, the high level of training and competency in all workforce categories is a huge reason why Germany works so well. The system itself is set up in a way in which order and regulations build community trust in their institutions. Even if, yes, sometimes change moves here at a glacial pace, it is still very much alles in Ordnung. Now, if you're from Germany and happen to be currently hastily down in the comment section of this video typing, "Ashton, no, you're all wrong. Germany experiences chaos all the time." Well, to that I would argue back, yes, but it's very distinctly German chaos, which is still pretty orderly. Take perhaps the most chaotic and frustrating realities of daily commuting, the inevitable construction zone. In the United States, merging from 1 lane down to 2 looks like this. But in Germany, orderly means taking your turn. Car accident up ahead? Well, in the United States, you wait impatiently and try to scoot over while the emergency vehicles try to traverse the precarious shoulder and weave in and out of traffic. But in Germany, Rettungsgasse is a faithfully observed rule of the road. Look at this order. It's incredible. And unlike in my home country of the United States, Germans do in fact do lots of things that to the outsider's eye might look like complete chaos and disorderly conduct. But it's actually still pretty orderly. For example, want to strip down naked and sunbathe in a public park? Well, here in Freiburg, my hippie city in southern Germany, no one is probably going to blink an eye. But in many other larger cities, there are too marked sections of local parks and lakes where bathing en natural is not only allowed, but condoned. But beyond being in the buff, controlled, orderly chaos happens in all sorts of other forms all across the country. Want to grab a beer and graffiti some artwork on a wall? Not to worry, there are designated sections around most cities where you can do just that, including the Mauerpark in Berlin. In Frankfurt, the Bahnhofsviertel neighborhood is full of brothels and clubs. Hamburg's St. Pauli red light district gives Amsterdam a run for its money. But the thing is, even though each of these examples could be considered somewhat rule-breaking and chaotic, they're still very much done in a very orderly fashion within their designated place within German society as a whole. As one writer puts it, it's less about banning certain things and more about making sure you're doing them in the proper, assigned place. Because order is ultimately about ensuring respect for others. No one is going to bat an eye if you pop open a bottle of wine and enjoy it at a picnic in a public park. Just make sure to drink responsibly, and when you're done, recycle that glass bottle. You are more than welcome to test the engines of your car and speed down the Autobahn. Just be careful to do it in the designated sections and immediately move to the right to allow for faster cars to pass. And if pyrotechnics are a personal fetish, great news. You can go hog wild on one legally specified night of the year, New Year's Eve. But of course, please be careful to not set it off in the immediate vicinity of churches, hospitals, children's, and old people's homes, or near thatched and half-timbered houses, or near thatched roofs and half-timbered houses. And here's the thing, giving in to the sense of order here in Germany wasn't something that I found to be easy when I first moved here, and quite frankly, I still find it a little bit frustrating at times. Most specifically that I can't mow my lawn on a Sunday because I swear, the sun only comes out on Sundays, and it's been raining here for like a month straight. But, honestly, I have really grown to appreciate the sense of order a lot, and I think it would be really interesting to hear from you down in the comment section of the video. What types of German order do you really appreciate, and are there any that you also personally find frustrating? Yeah, let me know down below. And as always, if you've enjoyed this video today, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And for more content from Type Ashton, hit that subscribe button. So I'll see you next Sunday. Cheers! To the Seeschiffsfahrtsstraßenordnung. 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 To the Seeschiffsfahrtsstraßenordnung. Seeschiffsfahrtsstraßenordnung.